I guess it'll be the homely life of knowing everybody, uprooting that, going somewhere else and being a total stranger. That's the worst thing that's going to hit me.
Well, I'm that way. I've hit the 70, and I'd like to see progress. I got no more to say. That's what I want. They took it from under my feet, and I want to see progress. Wouldn't you see that? Wouldn't you like it that way? Definitely you would. I want to see progress.
In the 1970s, following the early successes of the new satellite city of Elizabeth in the 50s and 60s, the South Australian government began planning another city development for the 1980s in Monarto, a farming community east of Adelaide. As with the Northern Plains, the site on which Elizabeth stands today, the South Australian government started buying out local farmers, some of which who were reluctant to leave. In speeches given at the time, then Premier Don Dunstan promised that Monarto would be a uniquely Australian city, more livable than Canberra, and more diverse in both population and industry than Elizabeth. The federal government of Prime Minister Gough Whitlam gave $10 million worth of funding to the Monarto project, worth about $66 million today, as part of a wave of spending on new cities. In the end, though, the new town at Monarto would not be built, needlessly uprooting an entire community. This was not the first time Monarto's residents had been dispossessed, of course. The area got its name from Queen Monarto, a local elder who lived in the area when the first European colonists arrived in 1847. Older settlers remembered with apparent glee that their families had hunted off the Aborigines from their land with stock whips. Historian Robert Lynn wrote more than a century later, the descendants of the German, Scottish, Irish and English settlers did not have such a physically brutal experience, and were financially compensated for their losses. Nonetheless, the acquisition of the first properties, which had belonged to two farmers who had been struggling financially, created a snowball effect, with the SA government quickly swooping in and acquiring more properties as locals saw their neighbours pack up and move away, adding pressure for them to do the same. Some locals had purchased properties elsewhere, subject to finance, only for the government to turn around and offer them 75% of the value they'd originally promised, putting landowners in such a position that in the finish they had to either sign off or lose their deposits. Original projections for Monarto's eventual population were for 100 to 200,000 people. Today, it stands at just over 200 people. It is ironic that a government which wanted to massively increase Monarto's population wound up driving so many people out of the district and absolutely destroying it. Perhaps Dunstan had been trying to match his predecessor, Sir Thomas Playford, whose founding of Elizabeth had been one of his crowning achievements. But by 1974, it became clear that the baby boom had ended. The post-World War II immigration boom was winding down, and that the new contraceptive pill had all significantly reduced population growth. That in turn meant that there was no need to build a new city on the plains, and federal funding for the Monarto project dried up after Labor's Gough Whitlam was replaced as Prime Minister by Liberal Malcolm Fraser in 1975. The original Monarto site is today home to a massive safari park, the largest safari park outside of Africa, and I can't help but wonder what the Northern Plains might look like today had the plans for Elizabeth also fallen through. The following footage tells the story of the people who lived in that original farming community, their way of life, and the impact of having to leave their land. It also gives us a glimpse to what life may have been like on the Northern Plains before Elizabeth was built.
A century ago, a small group of farmers in search of new homes set out from Adelaide and crossed the range of hills to the east that separates the rich coastal plains from the inland. For 4 generations they toiled to make a living from their farms in this place called Monarto. Today, the face of Monarto is taking on a new expression as the past gives way to the future. The new city, only a few miles to the west of the River Murray and the town of Murray Bridge, will provide homes for over 150,000 people in a relaxed rural atmosphere.
Well, in a way,
now we've got used to it.
yeah, in a way we know that we've got a shift. However, it would have been really all right to keep going. However, we're always getting older, and I think when I'm the 70, Mum's a bit older, I think it's time to sort of take it easy, even with all the sadness which goes with it. Don't need to be in a hurry, just take it leisurely, Mum, don't get excited. That's sort of for washing the last of the cream out of the patty pan.
Keep going, keep going. It won't come through yet. That's it.
That's an end of an era for us.
Well, I guess it'll be the homely life of knowing everybody, uprooting that, going somewhere else and being a total stranger. That's the worst thing that's going to hit me.
When you were hand shearing years ago, you'd shear, there was a lot of shearers. You'd shear for the boss that you'd hold your reputation to get back next year. That's what we done them days. That's going back 50 years. With the blades, I'd shear about 70, and with the machine, I'd do about 90. I was never a big shearer, but you had to do your job, you see, to get back this year. But today it doesn't matter, you see. It's a different world today than it was then. This was a very close-knit community here. People were all together. We were all one religion here, of the Lutheran religion.
These folk came out in the early days because of the religious persecution in their fatherland in Germany, and these descendants are worthy of their forebears and have maintained a faithful and a sincere and a definite witness to the community.
The last farmers prepare to leave the properties they've called home for a century. Their livestock has been sold, their ploughs laid to rest, and their wood stoves put out for the last time. Sadly, they stand aside.
Well, I only hope it goes ahead the way it looks it will, because if it doesn't, that's when I'm going to be hurt. To be moved from my place for something that didn't happen, that's going to really hit. But the way I feel about the city.
Well, I'm that way. I've hit the 70, and I'd like to see progress. I've got no more to say. That's what I want. They took it from under my feet, and I want to see progress. Wouldn't you see that? Wouldn't you like it that way? Definitely would. I want to see progress.